Brian.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just, I wasn't planning on speaking, but just a couple of points I'd like to put on the record as a former health minister in this place. I'm not going to revisit the debate of the leadership campaign in the summer, nor am I going to support new clause 1. I listened very carefully to what the honourable gentleman just said in setting out his argument, and I have some sympathy with some of it, as he probably gathered from some of my interventions earlier on. But I was happy to support, not that we have a division, but I was happy to support this repeal bill at second reading. It was well trailed throughout the ridiculously too long leadership campaign in the summer, and I don't think that was the issue that spooked the markets in the fiscal event a couple of weeks ago. For me, though, new clause 1, what's missing is the point that my honourable friend from South Suffolk made so eloquently earlier on in second reading is that this is probably the most important debate, and I'm miffed as to why the House of Commons is so quiet, that we could be having, because it's about funding the British public's number one priority, which is the National Health Service. And this debate is all about that. It was about that when we passed this levy. It's about that now we are repealing this levy. But the issues haven't gone away. And for me, I think new clause 1, and I'll listen very carefully when new clause 2 is outlined, but I think it looks down the wrong end of the telescope, to be honest. So if I return to the issue of funding of our NHS, which my friend from South Suffolk quoted from the OBR's projections, to go from about 10.3 to 17.5%. In coming years, I mean, they are eye-watering figures.
Percentage GDP.
Of GDP, that is, that percentage of GDP. And where I'm coming from as a former Minister for Public Health and Primary Care and Prevention is that we cannot simply carry on this curve. And the points I just wanted to put on the record, Madam Deputy Speaker, around 3 or 4 of the big challenges that the health service faces. And if we let ideology get in the way of facing them down as a government, then future generations, future governments, whether they are Conservative or Labour, will pay the price. Take obesity. UK-wide, NHS costs attributed to being overweight and obesity are projected to reach £9.7 billion by 2050. Now, when I was in the department, we wrote the Child Obesity Strategy, and it is fair to say that when he was running for the leadership of our party, the former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Uxbridge, didn't like a lot of it. In fact, I think he referred to the sugar tax as a sin tax, but repent the sinner. And he came round to that way of thinking. Now I hear rumours that that's for the bin. I hear rumours that many of the other things around price promotion, buy one get one free as it's colloquially known, are also potentially for the bin, because we don't want to be seen as the nanny state. This from the state that recently passed a law to make it illegal to leave your house without good reason. Sometimes, Madam Deputy Speaker, Madam Chair, the state does things in the interests of the population that it serves, and there's no shame in that. So if we don't tackle the obesity challenge, not only will it have a big fiscal impact on the NHS, that we're talking about how we fund, it will have a big social impact, which takes me to the second point, which is cancer. Around 4 in 10 cancers today are preventable. Smoking causes at least 15 different types of cancer. It's the biggest cause of cancer in the world today. And yet, the member for Stockton, who is in his place, mentioned smoking earlier on, and the smoking cessation plan, which I published when I was in office and we subsequently updated. We're still waiting for its revision. And yet press reports suggest that is to be dropped as well. I suggest gently, Madam Chair, that would be a massive own goal to our government and to the NHS that we argue as to how to fund. Yes. Sticking with cancer, the Be Clear on Cancer campaign. I'm sure that right honourable members across the House have heard of the Be Clear on Cancer campaign. Touch, look, feel, to encourage women to check their breasts. I lost my mother to breast cancer, destroyed much of my family, and I brought a 10-minute rule bill to this house early this year. Breast Cancer Now tell me that they think there are 12,000 undiagnosed breast cancers in this country today. You don't need to be a genius or a former health minister or a breast surgeon to understand what that could mean, because undiagnosed breast cancers move beyond stage 1. Once you move beyond stage 1 into 2 and 3, they're untreatable. That's what happened to me. I don't want it to happen to others. So, if the nanny state means implementing Be Clear on Cancer campaigns to help people avoid cancer, I'm a nanny statist. And then let me touch on 2 other things briefly, Madam Chair, and then I'll sit down. Diabetes. Sure. Then on diabetes, which I was just coming to, Madam Chair, the NHS spends about £10 billion a year, around 10% of its budget when I was in the department, on diabetes care. That is a phenomenal amount of money. And yet type 2 diabetes is preventable, and as we've heard from members of this House, you can turn it around. So why wouldn't we want to encourage people to manage their weight better? One of the big drivers of diabetes. And then finally, stroke. Stroke is a big killer in this country today. It costs the NHS billions. I visited a group in my constituency, Madam Chair, called Say Aphasia during conference recess. I figured it was a better use of my time. And I met in that room a group of 15 men, all of whom have had strokes, one of whom 2 years younger than me, have severe communication difficulties. I see the former Public Health Minister sitting near the front bench. She knows what I'm going to say. Why wouldn't we want to help the NHS prevent stroke through a proper salt reduction strategy? Given my surname, when I tried to suggest one in the department, it caused some amusement among officials. But I think it's the right thing to do. If we can't prevent stroke, then I'm going to meet a lot more of the people I met in the Say Aphasia group last week. And their ongoing cost to the NHS is significant. So in conclusion, the point that I'm trying to make, maybe I'm not making it very well, is that if we don't believe in prevention, and in my heart I believe that this front bench does believe in prevention, then the costs of the NHS that are predicted in that OBR book are going to look quite conservative with a small c. Because those projections actually include, I think I'm right in saying, this levy being in place, not repealed.
And corporation tax.
And corporation tax, says my friend from the Central Division. So if we believe in prevention, and as I say, I believe that the front bench do, then we need to have the courage to act on that prevention. And sometimes that means doing unpopular things. Because sometimes you have to do unpopular things to do the right things. And that means preventing some of the major killers and some of the major causes of ill health that I mentioned during my remarks. And if we don't do that, then the NHS will continue to cost unsustainable amounts of money, and it will become unsustainable. There is the end of the lesson of Dr. Bryan.
Yeah.